I'm Allison Singer with the Autism Science Foundation, here today at the Yale Child Study Center in New Haven, Connecticut, with Dr. Kasia Chawarska. She is Associate Professor at the Child Study Center, and she is the Director of the Toddler Developmental Disabilities Clinic here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So your work focuses on toddlers and babies in their first year of life. What are we learning about that population?
Allison, children who come to our clinic for a differential diagnosis are very, very young. A vast majority of them are between 18 and 24 months. And as you know, this is very, very early. As we know the history of autism and diagnosis, this is probably the earliest that we can diagnose children reliably. It speaks to the sophistication of the methods we use and also expertise we have developed over the past 10 years or so. What's quite striking about these children when we see them in the clinic is how similar they are in certain ways in their difficulty relating to other people, but also how dissimilar they are with regard to their level of developmental functioning. Level of their ability to even attend to speech-like sounds or produce speech-like sounds. Some of them have very elementary capacity in this respect, whereas others are actually quite responsive to speech and actually can communicate using single words. While some of these children have tremendous difficulty even noticing or engaging in social interactions with others. Other children might be actually very interested. They might be making some approaches, but they really have very little idea of how to do it, how to carry it on. Also, when we try to understand these children's various basic processes, such as attention, perception, and learning, we also see tremendous variability. So what we see in toddlers already in the second year of life is a similar phenomenon that has been described in older children. And these kind of observations led to a hypothesis that we're probably not dealing with a single homogeneous disorder, but probably dealing with subtypes which might be even linked to different etiology. They might have different developmental outcomes. And children within these subtypes might be amenable to somewhat different treatments, which is very important for us to understand, and I don't think we have a very good grasp.
So what is the next step there? I mean, how can we better understand how after we can classify children by subtypes, what is the next step? How can we develop interventions that use each child's unique strengths to develop new skills?
That's an excellent question. However, before we classify them into subtypes, we need to figure out the best way of doing it, because this is not a straightforward task. It is very unlikely that we can take a single measure or even many measures for children at the same time point and try to classify them into meaningful, stable, reliable, and predictive subgroups or subtypes. Right now here in our group, we are working very closely with our colleagues at the statistics department on developing new methods and new approaches of capturing the developmental trajectories of these toddlers from the first time they are diagnosed into hopefully into early preschool years, and classifying them on the rate of progress, classifying them on the profiles of strengths and deficits at successive points in time. And your question, what is it going to tell us, is very well taken. I think the first and the most important benefit of identifying more homogeneous groups is that we can take these groups to our colleagues, geneticists, biochemists, neuroimagers, and say, tell us how these kids are similar and how they are different from other kids within the spectrum, but with a different profile and different subtype of difficulties. And this can tell us a lot. This can help us design biomarkers and diagnose autism earlier. But having a biomarker is also extremely important for understanding the mechanism.
Are you starting to see specific symptoms or deficits or strengths that are predictive of future outcome?
We are just starting our work on subtyping. You know, what's very interesting is that in older children, the predictors of outcome are typically intellectual level of functioning and level of language. When we see an 18-monther, they typically have no language, so that measure is not very predictive, right? And we cannot capture their IQ either in a reliable manner because they're way too young. So what we work on in our lab is to create a better measure of prediction for predicting their outcome. And we are looking at multiple measures. We are looking at the measures, sort of basic behavioral measures, developmental levels, their ability to interact in a naturalistic environment. But we are also decomposing these skills into more elementary processes. So we are looking at their attention. Attention is a very complex construct. We are looking at the attention, perception, learning style, memory, in order to help us understand better what are the predictors. Because right now I don't think we have very good ones.
Is there anything in particular that we as parents can do at this point when we see children who have some of these early warning signs or predictors to help them sort of move into the group that is better outcomes? I think that's what we all want as parents. We want to maximize the skills that our children do have and use those to try to build the areas where they have more weaknesses. So what would your advice be there?
This is again an excellent question, and the reason why we want to identify more homogeneous groups is that what we really want to do is to be able to pair a given child with the most optimal treatment, most individualized treatment, tapping exactly into their profile of strengths and difficulties to maximize the outcome. Right now we do these pairings, the design of treatments or individualization of treatment is more of an art rather than science. And we really want to turn it into science. And that's the second reason why we are so intent on identifying more homogeneous groups within children with autism.
Well, I think we would certainly agree that that would be an important area in terms of helping our children to be the best that they can be. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.